Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new movie review. I am Chris, joined today with Tate, and Tate is about to give his review on Robert Eggers' latest horror film, The Lighthouse. I just realised I don't have my earphones connected. Ever the professional on this channel that I am. So that's all sorted now. So as you can see, Tate is in black and white. I tried to get myself in black and white, but I didn't get to see this movie, so I clearly don't have the right to be in black and white for this review.
You do not have the right to be in black and white.
I don't, sadly. Tate, you managed to get to see this film along with George, I believe. Did George go and see this one as well?
No, it was just myself who saw the film.
You were at London Film Festival this week. You've seen a whole bunch of films that will be going up for Oscars this year.
I have seen all of the Oscar films.
Pretty much. So you've got a very easy job once we get towards the December-January season. The Lighthouse doesn't get officially released worldwide until, well, for us in the UK anyway, until January 31st. So I've got to wait just a little bit longer to watch this movie. It is one of my most anticipated films of the year, or I guess 2020 now, if we go by my rules. For more updates on London Film Festival and everything like that, reviews and interviews, we have actual interviews with celebrities now on the channel, which is amazing. Please do follow us on social media. That's Facebook at /CinemaSavvy, Twitter at cinema_savvy, and Instagram at cinema_savvy. Loads of updates going on there, and there will continue to be as more reviews and interviews get edited and uploaded on our channel. So, The Lighthouse, you turned me onto this movie, as you do with many movies that I'm not aware of, or very underground ones, very, sort of low rumblings of movies that will eventually build up. I loved The Witch, the 2015 horror movie, his first proper major film, I think. I think he did a film before
he'd done a lot of short films. He'd worked as like prop designers and stuff like that on various other films. But The Witch was his. I don't even know. He's pronounced it as The Witch and The Witch from hearing him. But it's that film that he did first was his first film. So I've seen The Witch. I watched it. I think I watched it last year at some point. I wasn't fully focusing on it and everything like that. But I did seem to quite enjoy it, as far as a horror film that doesn't have many jump scares or any at all, really, and just kind of plays on that whole kind of it's the way that horror films are starting to go nowadays, and I like it. It's all the psychological horrors. It's the ones that make you think. It's the ones that play on your emotions, play on your mind, and a lot of horror films are starting to hark back to that, and it's excellent. I absolutely love it. I loved Get Out for everything that it did in that kind of sense of horror films, and The Witch kind of did exactly the same thing there. This film is very similar to that in the fact that it is a psychological horror film. It's very, very difficult to compare this film to any other film, really. The only one which I would compare it to would be probably The Shining. It plays a lot heavily on the themes of isolation, paranoia, and obsession, which is absolutely excellent when kind of broiled all together in what is essentially like a bottle film. It's just set in this one place, just on the lighthouse. And it's just between these two characters. I think there's maybe like 3 or 4 other extras who appear in one scene. Other than that, it's just these two, and it's the dialogue between them, and it's everything that goes with that, and it's excellent. I loved it.
So, I mean, I won't be reviewing this movie as such. Sort of my criticism and thoughts, and just from what I've got from trailers, is purely going to be based on my thoughts on his previous film, The Witch, which was a very kind of, judging from the trailer for The Lighthouse, a very similar style in that you do kind of just follow this, this one family. In this film, it's mostly just these two characters played by Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. And it is that sense of isolationism. You got that with the other film, with that family on the farm. It was a very creepy atmosphere, and I'm assuming that's what I got from this trailer, this very uncomfortable, uneasy atmosphere all the way through the film. You mentioned The Shining there, my favorite horror film of all time. Another one that we always mention when we talk about isolationism, which is probably our second favorite horror film. Or was it your first one? John Carpenter's The Thing. That was my first.
It was the one too. I think we just switched it around when we were voting and everything like that.
Those films that are predominantly set in one location, and that tension, that atmosphere just builds and builds. And I'm assuming that's the case with this movie as well.
It's very intelligently written. And by that, I mean the dialogue that's said. First of all, the thing that stands out immediately from the trailer is the language.
Similar to The Witch as well, where he used that very archaic of the time Yeah.
It's the main accent that Willem Dafoe puts on. Robert Pattinson has a slightly different accent because he's got elements of Canadian accent in there, and he's got elements of the main accent itself. But Willem Dafoe properly plays that kind of old lighthouse keeper, kind of that wiki dialogue that comes with it. And all of the words seem to flow perfectly off him. Like, it's really just brilliantly articulated in every single sentence that he does. I was lucky enough to actually go to one of the screenings where they did a Q&A afterwards with Willem Dafoe and Robert Eggers. And he was saying that it was such a hard dialogue to learn and such a hard kind of language to learn that he had to do it per line. So he would have the line in front of him and he would have the one scene that he'd have to learn dialogue for. And instead of learning the accent like most people would do for the entire film, he learned the accent just for the words in front of him. So he had to work with that every single scene. He had to figure out how he would say it. Instead of learning the accent just overall and keeping that accent throughout the entire film, he basically had to pick through every single little bit of dialogue and work it into the film, which is excellent. Yeah.
It's interesting to see this guy's career evolve as well. I mean, this is his second prominent film, his second horror film. So I am wondering if, he's clearly passionate about the horror genre. Otherwise, he wouldn't make two films that are a horror film.
Very interesting, Chris. Not passionate about the horror genre, passionate about folk tales and fairy tales. So one of the questions that someone asked him was, you've obviously done The Witch now and you've done this film. You're looking at a lot of folklore and folk tales and everything like that. Is that what inspires you, or is it the inspiration to scare people through kind of challenging issues and everything like that? For example, in The Witch, it's all about kind of how religion can have an effect on your society and everything like that, and how that can kind of influence you. With this film, it is obsession, I would say, was the driving focus of the film. But he actually just said, look, I grew up reading through like folk tales of witches because he grew up in New England, so he has all the Salem stuff and everything like that. He loves all those stories and he wants to put them to a screen, and it just seems like horror is the correct genre to fit to that kind of that detail in himself.
So I was actually having a look because I always like to, especially with directors that I'm really interested in, I'm always curious as to what their next project's going to be. This is according to Wikipedia, so take it for what it is. But apparently around July of 2015, his name was attached to write and direct a remake of the 1922 silent film Nosferatu. Again, another horror film, but could be interpreted as quite a folkloric kind of movie as well.
Once again, in the Q&A session, someone asked him that question, what is going to be your next step in film and everything like that? And he said he's going out and doing a lot of research at the moment on old kind of folktales and stories and seeing what he can bring to the screen that could bring a different horror element. He said that he immediately wants to tie it into something that can be kind of related back to present day and everything like that, or something that could be an issue that people can like almost like connect with. So obviously he wouldn't go and do something like Hansel and Gretel because it's very difficult to kind of connect that to a modern day setting or anything like that. Right. But he's looking for something which could spark fear or look at the human element in a way that is perceived through horror and folktales.
Nice. One thing that I did want to mention as well is that at least until the very end of The Witch, which I'm not going to give away, but the film could be interpreted in many ways. You could look at it as like, yes, this is actually, a real witch in the film, or you could see that the film is more of an allegory for something else and the control of religion and everything like that, at least until the ending of that film. Again, you could possibly still be open for interpretation, but the ending of that film does kind of cement it as like, no, this is actually a thing. Does he play with that very surreal imagery where you could say that, yes, this is a supernatural story, but you could also have those elements where, no, this is just all in these people's minds?
This is paranoia. And it's very interesting to see which character has which paranoia and uncertainty about the other. And there are elements of the film where you kind of question what's happening, whether it's actually real. There are lines which you think might be kind of throwaway lines which end up becoming very important later on. It's one of those films where you're always on your toes, you're always on the edge of your seat. You need to be paying attention to everything that is involved, and it's one that invokes heavy, disturbing imagery, probably more so than The Witch. This may put This may immediately put people off the film, but there are gruesome scenes of masturbation and things to that element. Obviously, you've got two blokes in a lighthouse alone in isolation for months on end. So, of course, there's going to be some form of connection to that. But even you start questioning, like, the elements of the film in itself and the message of the film at some point. I even questioned it. I was like, okay, where is this taking us now? And then suddenly it reveals a little bit more, and you're like, okay, got it, I'm on track again, and everything like that. So it's one that makes your mind dart all over the room, which is something that you really want from a psychological horror film. It wants you to keep on thinking about kind of what these two people are in this situation in and everything like that.
What I loved about the trailer as well is that, and I don't know if the film's actually shot in this, but it looked like it was in that 4:3 kind of format, which if you make your film black and white, just do it in 4:3 as well. And it looks like, I don't know, like, I know that it's kind of like playing on that old timey quality of it, but the fact that the camera's kind of shrunken, it feels like it's even more restrained and more cramped, and it's a good way that he brought that technical aspect.
Yeah, the second we actually get inside the lighthouse itself, you immediately feel kind of claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And you have that entire atmosphere every single time you're inside the lighthouse itself.
So is the Lighthouse very much a character as well as like Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, would you say? Just like the Overlook Hotel from The Shining? Yeah.
Absolutely. It plays a very heavy element in the story itself and plays a very heavy element towards the end.
Okay, so
I can't reveal any more because I genuinely would spoil the film.
I did give you the one caveat that I do not want this to be a spoiler review because I am dying to see this movie myself and I don't want anything spoiled for me. This movie's been getting universal acclaim. The technical aspects have been praised, direction, the performances, everything like that. Because you were hyped from the trailer, did this movie live up to the trailer? Were you let down in any way by any certain parts of the film? Could any more have been developed in any way?
This movie delivers exactly on what the trailer shows. Okay. It is a film between two people. It is a dialogue between two people. And it is kind of just the claustrophobic, like, month on end, stuck with this other person kind of film and everything like that. One thing this film plays with very nicely is the use of silence. I don't know if this would be giving it away. I feel like it wouldn't give much away about the story, at least, but I'm pretty sure the first 5 minutes of the film are completely no words at all. And you have a lot of scenes with the two characters kind of settling into the lighthouse. When the first words finally actually come, it does feel like almost like a tension breaker. There is that kind of thin layer of tension all the way through that first 5 minutes, even though there is nothing to be tense about. It's because these two characters are being so kind of silent, even though they're in the same room as each other, even though they're doing their jobs, their chores and everything like that. It feels immediately imposing on you. And that's excellent. I love that kind of filmmaking. But this film just delivered exactly on what the trailer showed. It's a brilliant film. I think it will be up for some Oscar contention. Likely, if they work it out that way. I think the main character in this film is Robert Pattinson. So I'm going to go ahead and say Willem Dafoe for Best Supporting Actor is pretty much a shoo-in for a nomination. Apart from that, cinematography could very well be up there.
Sound, maybe?
No, I don't think sound would be in there. Maybe production design because they built the lighthouse from scratch.
Costumes.
And everything like that. Costumes, yes. Maybe for the screenplay, possibly. Possibly for director as well. It was a very well-directed film in that sense. It's going to be very interesting because I feel like even though it's a film that's getting just global acclaim and everything like that, I think it will split Oscar voters because it has those kind of elements of real deep kind of grotesque horror and everything like that. It's very difficult to get nominated as a horror film. I mean, Get Out is the only one that I can think of in recent years.
I'm trying to think now. I was going to say, has a horror film ever won the Academy Award for Best Picture? Did Rosemary's Baby win Best Picture? I can't remember.
I don't remember. I'm going to have a look that up. Did it win Best Picture? I honestly don't know.
It may have been nominated, I think, but I can't remember if it won.
No, it got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, and it won for Best Supporting Actress. It got nominated for. It didn't get nominated for film in any category at the Golden Globes or Academy Awards.
It always seems to be a genre that never quite makes it, isn't it? But you know, I don't think it's going to win Best Picture. But even if it does get nominated, we saw last year as well with the likes of, you know, Black Panther getting nominated and things like that. That there are genres that are now getting picked up for Best Picture. Whether you agree with that or not is a completely different matter. Any final thoughts on The Lighthouse? Because I am very satisfied. I just want to see this movie now, even more.
I can't really say much more. It's a fantastic, tense, kind of sit on the edge of your seat horror film that will leave you questioning everything.
Wow. Boom, mic drop, everything. Yeah, man, there's I really wish I could have been there this week to see all these films. But you know, I'll be on it this December. We'll obviously be there for Oscars. It'll be interesting to see where this movie plays in your top 10 or top 5, however we're going to frame it, if it will even get into your top 10 from this year.
I'll say this to this point at the moment, because I've actually been writing down a decent amount for what could be in my top 5, my top 10. As far as the festival is concerned, it is my 4th favorite from the festival.
Okay.
Which doesn't mean it's a bad film. If you wanted to know a rating, I gave it an 8.4 out of 10, which is
okay. That's decent.
Pretty good, pretty high. As far as top 5 for the year, Jesus, I've got 5 written down at the moment, but I've also got 7 written down as possible sub-ins. So
I think
it's going to be very interesting.
From the films that I've seen this year, I think I'm going to struggle to hit a top 5.
I'm going to struggle to hit a top 5 worst films, to be honest, because I've been avoiding them. But the top 5 best films, especially with this festival that I've gone to, I've added at least 4 of them into that. It is just, it was a great opportunity to actually go and do. And if you wanted to learn more about The Lighthouse, then you should please go and watch George's interviews with Rob Eggers and Willem Dafoe, which we already have up on the channel. I believe it was it may have been our last video we put out before today. So go and watch that as well.
Once again, socials, final time, Facebook /Cinema Savvy, Twitter, Cinema_Savvy, and Instagram at Cinema_Savvy as well. A lot more content coming out from the coverage at London Film Festival. This weekend, I believe we will finally have our review on The Joker up. I was going to do one last weekend, but I know that you and George are both very eager to talk about that film as well. I did a spoiler review on The Joker, which you can check out on Itzmo's channel, which I'll put a link for in the description. I need to remember to do that. But we will be talking about Joker at length this weekend. I believe that, is it you and George are going to go and see Gemini Man, or George is seeing Gemini Man?
I believe George is seeing, I'm not sure myself. I'm not seeing Gemini Man. That is one that I am avoiding.
The trailers don't look good. The trailers do not look good. Even though it's Ang Lee, and I do really like Ang Lee's direction for the most part. Sometimes he makes the Hulk. But he's a pretty solid director, but those trailers just aren't doing it for me, man. It might be a good movie. We'll find out, but I'm sure we'll have a review out at some point for at the weekend for that movie. So hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, all of that good stuff. Comment, subscribe. I don't know how many people have seen The Lighthouse who are going to watch this review, but any comment is a good one. So until next time, we'll see you guys next time.